Excellent. Thank you for that, and thank you, Daniel, for co-presenting here today. And everybody that's taken the time out today of your day, I know time is valuable, and we're very mindful of that, and hopefully we're going to use your time wisely. So today's presentation, hopefully the takeaway from this, we're hoping that you can learn how valuable webinars can be to drive business. Second is give you some great tips on executing and performing and succeeding with webinars, and how to reduce the amount of effort it takes to drive the webinars. So just a little bit of background on myself is that before I started the technology company, we were actually operating as a digital agency, and we built ActiveDEMAND as a necessity to drive our retainer business. And really the main KPI we were trying to move the needle on was number of clients per employee, and webinars played a very, very important role in this. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to be talking about is drawing from my experiences driving the businesses that I've ran through my career, and how webinars have played a role in that. So on the agency side of things, I think that the retainer business is really a great place to be in. We did a lot of projects, web builds, this type of stuff, but we also had a very healthy stock of retainer clients. And I think there's some significant challenges facing all agencies today. And I think every agency, and this is definitely the case for us when we were operating as an agency, it was the thing we were really trying to do is build strategic relationships with our clients and growing our agency business. We wanted ideally to be in the situation where we were strategic partners of our clients, not just on the project side, but definitely on the retainer side, because there was a long-term ongoing relationship with us and our clients. And really, I personally really like the retainer side of things. The reason being is that we were working together with our clients it was a very agile relationship. And if it's done right, then it's a case that you become a trusted advisor for your client and you're part of the team. It's a case that you can make very quick decisions and adjust as you know, business changes from not just quarter to quarter. Quite often things can change much more rapidly, and having your communications team and marketing team, which in this case was for us was the agency, as part of that, and being able to make agile decisions it's a win-win scenario. But I think that we face some significant challenges as an agency growing our retainer business. And for those companies that are or people on the phone today that aren't part of an agency, the same story goes for you as building your businesses. And I think it's universal. One is we all face competition. That's the reality of it. And the challenge we face is differentiating our offering from some of the other people playing in our space. And let's face it, we're all busy, right? And especially if you're in a services business where all of your employees are typically billable and you're really focusing on the utilization numbers, etc. And if you're going to be looking to drive demand for your business, then sometimes it's almost a change in thinking. And especially if you're doing projects as agencies and then moving to a retainer relationship, sometimes the handoff can be a little bit messy. And let's face it, doesn't matter what business you're in, there's going to be effort, right? And as far as the agency business is concerned, it isn't what Don Draper was promising about, being able to roll into the office late and drink all day and spend all the time being creative. No, there's a lot of manual effort is the reality, and a lot of it is if we could focus a lot more on creative, then everybody wins. But let's face it, the marketing is a lot of work, as well as demand generation, etc. So I'm just going to pass things back to Eric for a quick poll here, and just ask a couple of questions about what you're facing in your business today. What are your top challenges? And I'll just hand it over to Eric there. Eric?
Alrighty. So the question is, so what is your top challenge? High competition, lots of manual effort, is it decreasing client acquisition costs or trying to decrease client churn? So if you can pick one of those that most represents what your top challenge is. And again, just you can just select the choice right on your screen there. Okay, the numbers are coming in. Looks like a bit of a neck-and-neck race between competition and manual effort. Alrighty. All right,
yeah,
so everyone has one last one, and we will close that off and share it, the results. So, yeah, it looks like manual effort is the top choice there. 40% of people, that's your challenge, with high competition being a close second, with a few people in there looking for decreasing their acquisition and client churn. So, we'll hand that back to Sean to deal with to address those.
Yeah, and just like my slide said, there's 24 hours in the day, and if that isn't enough, then you better be working all night. Yeah, it's everyone's busy, lots of challenges. That's the reality of it. The things that I was really losing sleep over when we were driving our agency was really these things. I wanted to definitely, and I didn't have a specific order. I would say effort is probably the number one thing. Is again, unlimited wants, limited resources. We needed to make choices. But these things are the things that I was actually losing sleep over, is how do I decrease my customer acquisition costs, and definitely client churn is a big one. We wanted to be delivering a lot of value and keep the clients. It cost a lot of money to get the clients in. We wanted to keep the clients on board. And of course, we wanted to increase the retainer fees and increase the relationship with our retainer clients, and definitely the size of the client. It's much more stable. Clients means much more stable business. And like I was saying, the main KPI we were trying to drive is number of clients per employee. So really it's reducing the effort per client, not the value, the effort per client. That was really a big one for us. And I think that really the solution to this, and a really good strategy, and it's worked so well for us when we were operating as an agency, and today as we're operating as a technology vendor, is I think webinars were a great strategy. And one, if you think about the client acquisition and reducing client churn, really the webinar builds authority for the presenter and the company presenting. And if you can present with industry experts and align yourself with industry experts, again, it's positioning you as the presenter as, again, building authority on the topic. And really, and I know when we were an agency, we were focusing on two segments. One was industrial automation clients, and we had a very healthy B2C play, which was on fitness studios like martial arts and boxing clubs and that type of stuff. And we're looking at client acquisition. We'd do things like industry meetups or meetups, and we do talks around town and meeting clients, lunch and learns, and this type of stuff in town, which was very nice, but had a significant opportunity cost. Whereas with, for example, a webinar, if we did a webinar, for example, on growing your martial arts business, and we met so many clients, and they weren't just in our backyard. We were doing martial arts studios across North America, and definitely the industrial clients, we had them all over the world. And that really isn't possible with a lunch and learn. And if you think about doing the webinar, it teaches your prospects what you're going to be doing for them and the expertise you're bringing to the table. As well, it teaches the clients that you currently have, and if you're able to bring them into the webinars, what you're actually doing for them. So it's a really good fit, and this isn't just my opinion. I think there's been lots of surveys that show the effectiveness of webinars on moving the needle in a demand generation portfolio of strategies. And I think there's some and hopefully we're going to address these today, some of the notions about executing a webinar. And Daniel, maybe you can talk a little bit about this as well, is that there's a misconception about the amount of effort. And again, I will talk about that myself. Daniel, do you have any comments that you can share on this slide here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, just from our perspective, and I'm usually on the client side, and we run, at our peak, we run about 100 webinars a quarter. And as you can imagine, that takes some resource. So even if you've got the process down well, we sometimes still outsource to agencies, and as you'll see later from Sean's part of the presentation, there are great ways to automate a lot of that work away in the combination of ActiveDEMAND and GoToWebinar, and that's what I'm excited about, because even for us, we kind of need a hero, an external hero, to be able to pull it off at the scale that we do, and that's where you as agencies come in, and where you can be really helpful and generate a lot of new business.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for that, Daniel. So yeah, really the other piece I mentioned about the things I was losing sleep over as an agency, how do I grow the business with the webinar? And clearly, it's a case that if we were doing retainers that were B2B on the industrial side of things, as well as on the B2C side of things. But definitely as a service, though, I would say that we were able to add this to our menu of services that we could provide our bigger clients. So because if you think about the bigger B2B clients, they have longer sales cycles, longer marketing cycles, therefore there is an education phase. And if you're moving the needle a little bit for a larger client, the impact financially to them is much greater, therefore they have more budget to spend on moving the needle. So a webinar is a very good service to be providing. And like I said, it's a great services product because you put the effort in once. Like I said, it builds authority for your clients. There's some great convertible assets at the end of it. There's the initial webinar, there's the webcast, there's white papers, etc. And the beautiful thing about a webinar is it is absolutely measurable. You can completely measure the effort in and the results and the impact because it is a digital activity, so everything is trackable. So if you're thinking about allocating efforts and things that are in your portfolio of services, the things that you can demonstrate, delivering value is easy for an agency. Demonstrating value delivered is typically a challenge, and if you can pick things that are measurable and get full attribution, it's a real win for you and a real win for your clients. So again, it's about also growing your agency. It's a great demand gen for the clients. It's a great demand gen for you. Like I said, there's many convertible assets that can be reused. There's a lot of reuse, and Daniel's going to talk about that. And again, it increases the your offering for your existing clients, and again, it gives you something to go after a little bit bigger clients as well. So let's face it, B2B marketers need a hero, and that hero is either yourself or people around you in your organization, and I think webinars are a great tool for that. And as an agency, one of the things that we found, and like we said, we were doing a lot of webinars, and our partnership with the folks at GoToWebinar goes back many years. And there was actually a side benefit, and Daniel's going to talk about that, is that we would refer people to GoToWebinar as part of our relationship, and we'd get some very nice commissions as a result of the introduction. And Daniel will talk a little bit about the icing on the cake here. Daniel?
Yes. So we're obviously, what we're seeing a lot with agency customers is that over time, as you host webinar programs for your clients, a lot of them will pick up some of the easier day-to-day webinars themselves, and that's a great opportunity to then go in and earn the commission and focus on driving the high-level webinars and the strategy for them, because GoToWebinar is intended to be a tool that anybody can use, and we're known for ease of use. And so when that does come up, you have another opportunity to profit from that with commissions.
Yeah, and the reason that the relationship we've had with GoToWebinar has been so long, and why we chose GoToWebinar in the early days and continued and have stuck with GoToWebinar, is the technology is absolutely rock solid. And it's a case that, and that's very important when you're executing these things, and we've executed some very large webinars. And typically as the agency, we'd be using our clients' GoToWebinar account. So if they didn't have one, they would have to get one. We would do the services on the execution, and of course we would get a little bit of commission in the back end. So I promised, you know, I talked about some of the things that I was losing sleep over, and I think one of these big ones is was driving the number of clients per employee that our agency could handle. And really that meant that we needed to find a way to reduce the effort for our marketing activities. And I'll talk a little bit about that, I promise. And but in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'll just do a quick poll here. I'll hand things back over to Eric, and then after the poll, I'm going to hand things over to Daniel to talk about building a webinar that your mother would be proud of. So with that, I'll pass it over to Eric, and he'll give us a quick poll.
Alrighty then. So the poll question here is, what is your experience with webinars? So again, just pick on your screen there. We don't run any webinars today. We run webinars, but only on our own behalf, marketing ourselves. We run client webinars, but it's not a program. It's more of an ad hoc thing. Or we are already running webinars for our clients. So those numbers are coming in. Yeah, not surprisingly, it looks like there's a lot of people not running webinars today. You're at a good place to be.
That's great. That's what we're going to talk and how to get started with that. So you're in the right place.
Yes, absolutely. All right, looks like a few more last minute ones clicking in. All right, we'll close that off and share those results with everyone. So yeah, the majority are not running webinars or running them on their behalf. There are some of them who are running them as a full program for their clients. So again, there's always lots to learn. So I will.
Yeah, well, that's great, and that kind of goes back to the stats that we showed earlier in terms of, you know, people know that they're highly effective, but it does take time to put them together, and so my bit today is going to be talking about, all right, you know, as you get into webinars, how do you pull off a webinar program? What are the keys to do? And I have a lot of actionable stuff to share. So you'll see some in the handout section in the panel, and I'll also tweet out a bit of them later, and just walk you through it. So how do you create those webinars that hopefully your mom and maybe your client's mom would be proud of? Well, the first thing first, you need great content, as goes for pretty much everything in B2B marketing, because your content is what's going to pull people in, and we've done research just on the webinars that our customers are running, and you can show time and again that the content is what pulls people in. Big name and content fit are the two top things that pull people in. And so where do you source these ideas for that magnetic content that puts people in? Well, there's a couple of, you know, shortcuts for lazy people like myself, like conference agendas, right? Like look at what in your industry are the niche conferences, the niche summits, and get inspired or steal. Industry blogs is another good thing. Look at what, you know, the blogs that you subscribe to for your industry, what gets published, what gets shared a lot, and that's usually good inspiration for your own. What you always have to think about, though, is about your own customer community, or in this case, your client's customer community, in terms of understanding what's a great fit for them, right? So, so you want to make sure that there is audience fit, and today is a good example, right? So we've looked at, okay, within our lists and within ActiveDEMAND's base, who are the agency clients that we can go to, and what's the topic that we can talk about that fits that audience well. So this is an example of how we do this. And if you look at the right-hand side, right? So we want to have the content be highly targeted to that audience, and then have it be immediately actionable. Ideally, you go away from this webinar today and you're able to take action and start with your own webinar program. And so that's one bit that we hopefully will be successful at today. And one thing that, as you run your webinar programs, you should always have top of mind. What is it that I can have customers take away that's immediately actionable? And lastly, be authentic. Just be yourself, right? I just spilled water all over myself before this webinar started, and that's part of the whole deal, and it's part of the fun, and it's part of what makes you human. And for your clients, in a lot of cases, those webinars are one of the few opportunities in a B2B environment where end customers, end users have a direct connection with the business. And so that's where webinars are unique and where they can bring something new and different to the table. That is a lot of fun. So keeping with that piece of actionability, and now I'm going to do hopefully a great job at multitasking, which I'm usually really bad at, and tweet out the link to this, because you can plan and manage a standout event, and we have a great checklist, because if I went through this today, I would probably not be super successful. So I'm tweeting this out now under the hashtag that we have, agency webinar. And that's a checklist that you can just take, grab it from Twitter now, retweet it if you like. We'd obviously love to see that. And it just talks about what are the steps that you need to take to have a great event happen, and gives you a lot of details. So check that out. All right. Moving on. So in terms of, right, so we talked about the content stream and how you want to have a content fit and a content that pulls people in. Well, that's great. Now you've got the content. How do you get people to actually show up on the day? As in any event, when I plan my kid's birthday party, I want to make sure that everybody shows up. And so if you have time to only do one tactic, then email is the one to use. Email is the one that drives probably 70% of registrations to webinars. And then to add on to that, you obviously use your social channels, your own website or blog to promote, and then your personal network. That can be surprisingly successful in terms of if you have the right content fit, tweeting it out to your contacts. All right, so those are the promotion tactics. If you see in the handouts panel on the right-hand side, I have 3 ebooks for you. The first one is about how to drive people to the webinar, and the second one is about how to maximize attendee engagement. And these are all tips from our own team. So as we put together the webinar program of GoToWebinar, what have we learned? And we've put that into these ebooks. And so hopefully that's something that where you can have a look and take that information away and make sure that you run a great webinar program for your clients. All right, so how do you maximize attendee engagement? Well, one of those is shut up or shout. So either silence, right, or you get really loud. There's a couple of ways you can use your voice to get people and pull them back in, because one thing that's important in a webinar is you need people to engage with the webinar, because there's a lot of distractions, right? Right now you might be looking at your email, or you might be looking at your Twitter stream, or at your phone, and I need to pull you back in. So how do I do that? One thing is I can shut up and be silent for a moment. That pulls people in. The other thing is I can start a poll, and you've seen us do that a lot today, because it's something that for the attendee side is an activity for you that pulls you back into the tool. And so that usually works really well. And what also works well is asking open-ended questions to the audience, which I'm not going to do right now. So I'm going to actually skip on to the next bit and talk about how you can repurpose those webinars. So that's another key challenge that marketers, and that I'm sure that you as an agency have on behalf of your clients is, all right, content is the new currency. Well, not new even anymore, but content is the currency. And how do you produce a lot of that content? And the good news about a webinar is there's great ways in which you can repurpose the content that you've just put together for the webinar. Obviously, you can share the webinar itself, the on-demand recording, like we will today, right? We have an on-demand recording that we'll provide to you. You can turn the whole webinar. You've just spent all this time on putting slides together, putting thoughts into that. You can repurpose that into blog posts, into white papers, do more with it. We sometimes send the whole transcript from the recording to an agency that then just gives us that back as pure copy, so we can have an easier time repurposing that. So there's a lot of great ways in which you can use the webinar to turn it into different content assets. Now, with that, we come to one poll where we look at just what is it that, what are the reasons that you're not doing more webinars today? Because we've seen some of you don't do any. There's very few that have it as a consistent program. Why is that? So Eric, I'm handing over to you.
Alrighty, we'll bring that one up. So as Daniel said, why are you not doing more webinars? So just too much effort required to get that done, time constraints, either in promotion or content generation, too difficult to execute. Like, I don't even know where to begin to make that happen, or you're finding you're not getting enough interest signups to make it worth your effort. So, like lots of action on all of those at the moment.
Yeah, it's definitely an even race, pretty much.
Yeah. So People are doing their thinking. All right, if anyone has a last-minute one to throw in there. So it's looking like effort, time constraints, or lack of signups is a big one. So let's close those off and share them off. So it looks like the pretty much neck and neck between time constraints of getting it done, or not being able to get enough interest signups. So the promotion side of things isn't quite where it needs to be, or effort. So.
Well, that's
Excellent.
perfect, because we'll learn from Sean in a moment how you can automate a lot of these pains away, so in terms of time constraints and too much effort. So Sean, with that, over to you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And definitely, I would say when we were an agency, like I said, our main KPI that we were trying to drive was number of clients per employee. So regardless of how much effort anything was, we were constantly trying to find ways to optimize the effort that we were taking to execute on marketing strategies. So definitely effort is the piece of the topic here that I'm going to spend a bit of time on. And like I said, we've been doing webinars for many years, and it's a case that they've been very, very good for us. So I'll talk about how we address some of these things. So if we think about what I call the execution effort balance, how much time, how much effort are we going to put into, and I categorize it as two things, the content and the promotion. And so it's really where unlimited wants, limited resources, we've got to make choices, where do we put our effort. Now, the easy one to think about, gee, you know, we've got to put it into the content, and it's a case that there's got to be a topic, it's going to be, we've got to put all of our effort into that, and then, you know, we're going to spend a bit of time at promotion. Somehow, you know, the content, if we really focus on the content, then it's a case that we should be good. The issue with this strategy, of course, is that if you think about even a birthday party, the birthday party analogy that Daniel talked about, is you put a lot of effort decorating the house, getting a beautiful cake, and then you don't invite anybody, you're going to have a very upset kid. That's the reality of it. So if we go the other way and we just put all of our limited effort into promotion, because, you know, we want to drive those sign-ups and really, you know, put some numbers on the board from a delivery perspective. But if the content is thin, then clearly you'll get a bunch of people come to the party and they're going to be very unhappy because it just wasn't what was promised, right, which is never good. So really, you know, there's got to be a bit of balance between the two. You've got to put, like I said, there's 24 hours in a day, and if that isn't enough, then work all night. And that's clearly not an answer, and I think that as an agency we spent a lot of time thinking about this and how to drive webinar success as well as have repeatable success, right? Because you can't really improve if it's the case that, one, you're not measuring, and hopefully we're able to measure everything, which you're able to do, which is nice. So, and I think the big key element here that I'm going to focus on is effort, manual effort. Right? The promise of automation in manufacturing is really to reduce manual effort or reuse the manual effort that was done once. Now we think about in manufacturing that automation is really just about adding equipment and robots to make something work with machines, but the reality it's not. It's to transform the role of people in the process of production. And the same thing goes for marketing, is that, you know, if you look at any marketing activity, there's so much labor and a little bit of creative. What we really want to do is tip the scale so that we do the labor once, if at all. If we can get away from doing any labor, fantastic, and focus all of our efforts on the creative. And the word to do this is really the word automation. And our product, ActiveDEMAND, is an automation platform, and it's built for the multi-client marketer. We were a multi-client marketer. We were an agency. We did a pivot. Now we're focused primarily on helping provide technology and expertise to those people that are marketing to many clients, and ActiveDEMAND is the solution for that. Now, if we think about just the promotion side of things, because if we're doing webinars for our clients, and when we were an agency, typically the content was really being developed by the expert, which in this case would be our client. And if we were doing webinars for ourselves, the content was easy because let's face it, as an agency, talking about the things you know a lot about is very easy. So I think the content side of things, if you are doing the content on something that you're an expert on, I'm sure you'd have to ask people to get you to stop talking as opposed to come up with something to talk about. But as an agency, it's actually your client doing the content and it's your job to do the promotion. So as Daniel mentioned, email is a great strategy. I think social media is another great strategy, paid advertising, and there's also work on the website with pop-ups, SMS, all this other stuff. So these are all lumped into the promotion side of things. And you see the little calendar that we had actually for this event. It's a case you can see social media. We've done some direct Twitter message scheduling. We've done some emailing, different email strategies, SMSs, etc. So there's a lot of stuff on the promotion side of things to focus on. And then there's also the effort to create the assets. And for this webinar, there is literally, I think there's 7 or 8 landing pages that we've created for the webinar. There's all of the social posts. There's all of the different emails that we've created. Also, our website is dynamic, so we're dynamically injecting pop-ups, and all of our hero banners are changing to promote this webinar, etc. So there's a lot of stuff on the go from an effort perspective. And I'm really, if you think about it, though, from one webinar to the next, and Daniel's doing 100 webinars a quarter. We were doing a lot of webinars per quarter for us because we were doing it as a service for our clients. But if we think about what really changes from one webinar to the next, right? It's the time and date of the webinar, when it's going to happen. There's the target audience, right? There's the group of people you're gonna target for the webinar. Hopefully, you'll align it with the content. There's clearly the topic. There's a short pitch, you know, the mug shots of the presenters, and a few graphics. That's really all that changes from one webinar to the next. So really what we do is we have a recipe for webinars that we've been working on for many years. And the recipe includes all of the assets, all of the timing, the tempo, the different communication mediums, etc. And we've abstracted all of the content. And we abstract it into this variable table. So really, if you think about it, if you abstract the variable content, which isn't a lot, then you can really, you know, all of the assets. If we do a webinar, we literally take the recipe, deploy the recipe, and then we just fill out that variable table. All of the emails are built. All of the social media posts are built. All of the landing pages are built. Everything is done, right? So the manual activities are removed from the process.
If I may interject here for a moment, so we use Marketo ourselves to promote our own webinar when we run it, and we certainly think that we've got the process down. But I was impressed with when we set up this webinar together with the ActiveDEMAND team. We did everything out of ActiveDEMAND, and I was impressed with how easy it was compared to what we do in Marketo, where we still have to have a process around it in Workfront to get everything done in Marketo, and it is automated. It is a lot easier than if you did this all in a completely manuated way. But with ActiveDEMAND, it was really easy. So kudos to you.
Thank you. Thanks for that. So yeah, the reality is that even when we were an agency, we could fully promote a webinar in under 2 hours. That's full promotion. And of course, you know, as an agency, the amount of content and all of the stuff that you're producing as part of the activity is way greater than the effort that you put in the second time, especially if there's a recipe, right? And it's a case that we could charge a reasonable fee as a agency for the effort, because it, you know, on the outside it looks like there's a I'm reminded of that commercial with the Rice Krispie squares where, you know, the mother who's taking on the cooking chores is puts a flower all over her face, makes it look like she's done a lot of labor to get these Rice Krispie squares. Same story here is really, it's really leveraging the automation. So if we look at the execution effort balance, the reality is the effort is on the content, and if you're the agency and you're actually doing it for yourselves, it's very easy to produce the content. And if you're executing for somebody else, it's really the creative aspects of the promotion that you can focus on, because the manual effort is really being reused here. And really, it's been a very nice peanut butter and chocolate story with ActiveDEMAND and GoToWebinar, because we've always used GoToWebinar and also the companion product GoToMeeting. It's a case that so we have some very tight integration with the software, and it makes it very easy to really customize, personalize, contextualize the messaging, etc., to drive a webinar. So with that, I'm just gonna pass things over to Daniel to talk a little bit about some next steps here, and then we'll open it up for Q&A in just a second here. Daniel?
Yes. Well, so I'm not going to go into much of a pitch of GoToWebinar, because you've seen the tool in action today, right? You've seen what it does. You've seen what we use it for and how we do it. You've experienced the platform, so one action that obviously we would love for you to take is to check it out. So with the link here, request a demo, and we'll be happy to get you an evaluation of the tool and a 10% discount. So do check it out. We believe it's the simplest webinar platform there is on the market today. We also know that we're the #1 player in the market in terms of market share, with about 40% of the market. And the reason people use it, and what we see in public reviews on JudoCrowd and TrustRadius is that ease of use always is the key reason why people pick GoToWebinar, and we hope that we can show that to you too. I'll be tweeting out that link and sharing it in the chat in a moment as well. So yeah, do have a look at it, because obviously we're a little in love with our own tool.
Well, I'm like I said, we've been a partner using GoToWebinar much before we were a partner, and we made the choice to go with GoToWebinar. Definitely ease of use, but I think the bigger one that really made the choice for us was the technology. Rock solid. It's a case that we've done very large webinars and webinars for our clients in different parts of the world, and the technology has always been so good and so reliable. That's really why we made the choice. And as well, if you're interested, agencies in the audience today, we have a free agency portal, and it isn't just a promotion today. We do have a free agency portal solution where you can check out and build dashboards and client reporting, and as well, we have full integration with GoToWebinar and GoToMeeting. And there's a link there which we're also going to tweet out today. And with that, I think the next step here is I'm going to pass